those who are new, it is difficult for me to go back to the beginning again. When you come in the middle of the class, in the middle of the course, I cannot go back to the beginning.
But they can listen online if they want to.
Okay, if you like.
Yeah.
And also today I don't have any handout. Today I want to continue where we stopped last time. And also there may not be time to learn Pali, because this section that we started on feeling is very important. So we have to spend a little more time on feelings. Everybody is living on feelings. We talk, communicate, work because of our feelings. So here, today, the Buddha has explained feeling in many different ways. Last time we discussed there are 6 kinds of feelings which are multiplied by 2 as household feeling and feeling based on renunciation. So today we want to spend time one kind of feeling is overcome by another kind of feeling. That is, by depending on and relying on the 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. Abandon and surmount the 6 kinds of joy based on the household life. So, you may not like that. Not too many people like to renounce household feeling, 6 joy, using the joy based on renunciation. What is the joy of or based on renunciation? Do you remember, any of you?
Renunciation leads to happiness because you're forwarding toward, like wisdom.
Is it leaving aside greed, hatred, and delusion,
Mm-hmm.
and going beyond being free from the unwholesome state of minds and cultivating the wholesome state of minds?
Yes, by letting go of greed, hatred and delusion, you have joy, that is called joy based on renunciation. What do you renounce? You renounce greed, hatred and delusion. Is greed, hatred and delusion beneficial or not? No way. They are not beneficial at all. And therefore, is it not proper for us to let go of that joy on account of the joy that we get from letting go of them? So that is how it is. That is how we have to develop that kind of feeling. So when we depending on and relying on this kind of grief based on renunciation, abandon and surmount this kind of grief based on our household life. What is the sixth kind of grief based on renunciation? Now you said when we give up greed, hatred and delusion, there arises a joy. That joy is called joy based on renunciation. Having renounced greed, hatred and delusion, joy arises. And so we want to cultivate that joy and let go of the joy that brings greed, hatred and delusion. Then what kind of grief we have, what kind of grief we develop based on renunciation? That is, we practice meditation, and as we gain insight and develop our concentration, we can see, especially when these two combine together, concentration and mindfulness, when these two combine together, even with mindfulness we will get that awareness, this knowledge, because mindfulness, the main thrust of mindfulness is that is impermanence. We see impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness of everything, starting with impermanence. Then that is the main theme of vipassana meditation. When we practice vipassana meditation, we see impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness. And yet, we have not made any progress. Right? Seeing impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness is the practice of renunciation. Normally household a practice is not based on that. But when we practice mindfulness, we see these three things. And therefore, seeing these three things, one should be happy to see reality. Reality in life, in the past, present and future, is that everything we experience, everything in the whole universe is impermanent, dynamic, changing, and therefore they are unsatisfactory. Since there is no way to control it, there is no overlordship or called self. So once we see this, we should be able to liberate ourselves from greed, hatred and delusion, totally. But we have not done that. We have not achieved it. And there are some others who also have seen impermanence, unsatisfactoriness and selflessness, and they have achieved it. And therefore, they have reached their goal, we have not. That brings us grief. We feel disappointed. We feel we are at the same place, where we started. We have not made any progress. That is a grief. So, but that grief we must use to overcome household grief. This grief is better than household grief, because this grief is caused by trying to attain higher state of mind, the liberation from suffering. But that grief of household grief is not like that. Because you want to achieve something, you won't get that, then you have grief. Then you want to achieve something else, you won't get that, then you have grief. Or you have achieved something, you lose it, you have grief, isn't it? Whenever we lose something, we have grief, sorrow, lamentation, pain. And there's a perpetuation of greed, because you want something that you don't get it, and then you get something and that you lose. In each case you will have desire, greed, clinging, craving. But this grief of based on renunciation is the grief for achieving, for not achieving the super state of mind, higher state of mind, more peaceful and happy state of mind. We don't get it. And therefore that grief is better than household grief. And therefore using this, the grief based on renunciation, we must learn to overcome household grief. Then, depending and relying on the sixth kind of equanimity based on renunciation, abandon and surmount sixth kind of equanimity based on household life. What is the household life equanimity?
You try to achieve something and try, and eventually you can't, you give up.
Yeah, it is called indifference.
Indifference.
You just give up. And that is some kind of equanimity for household life. But what is the equanimity of based on renunciation? That equanimity, yes?
I was just it's based on the knowledge of impermanence, that things will come and things will go, and therefore that reality should bring you an
Right. The
equanimous state of mind.
that equanimity is called, in other words, equanimity based on the conditioned things. All conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless, and therefore no conditioned thing is better than another. One conditioned thing is not better than another conditioned thing. Not one person is better than another person. Not one achievement is better than another achievement. Because they all have the same thing. When we see the sameness in everything, there arises equanimity. And that equanimity is better than the equanimity we gain from household life. In household life, equanimity is just negative, giving up. It's sort of indifference. And that will not bring you peace or happiness. But this equanimity, based on renunciation, makes the mind calm, relaxed, peaceful, and steady, free from suffering. And therefore, this equanimity is better than household equanimity. So, using this equanimity, one would give up household equanimity.
Bhante, what are the Pali words for household and renunciation?
Household is samisa.
Samisa.
Renunciation is niramisa. Samisa, niramisa. It is easy for me to use a Pali word since most of you are not familiar with Pali words. I try to avoid it also to save time. But we will, one day I want to go through these things with Pali. But I want to spend this time explaining the Dhamma involved in this course, in this section. Now, using house, this is another thing. First we learn, depending on household, depending on the joy arising from renunciation, we get rid of the joy that arises from household life. Depending on renunciation, the grief based on renunciation, we try to abandon household grief. And based on the equanimity based on renunciation, we overcome the equanimity based on household life. Now, another thing is, there are 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. Using this joy, abandon 6 kinds of grief based on renunciation. 6 kinds of joy using 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation, we learn to overcome 6 kinds of grief based on renunciation. Okay? And then, by depending and relying on 6 kinds of equanimity based on renunciation, we learn to overcome the 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. You see? 6 kinds of equanimity we use to overcome 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. Both are renunciation. Equanimity based on renunciation we use to overcome the 6 kinds of joy based on renunciation. And then what is left is equanimity. What is left is equanimity. And equanimity also has 2 kinds. Equanimity that is diversified based on diversity, and there is another equanimity based on unity, and that is called unified equanimity based on unity. Now, this is the equanimity based on renunciation, higher kind of equanimity. This higher kind of equanimity also is twofold. One is diversified based on diversity. Other is unified based on unity. What is, just use your common sense. I ask you this, I just want to have a little quiz to check your common sense. Now, what is the equanimity based on diversity? What is the equanimity? Diversified equanimity based on diversity.
It's very hard to answer, but the diversity in the culture now is a totally different meaning for us.
Yes. But it is very simple. Not
Okay.
difficult. We have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind.
Yeah.
These are diverse things, not
Oh.
one thing.
Oh.
Equanimity arises through the eye, the visual form, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought. From each sense, equanimity can arise. By seeing objects, we see the object is any object, no matter what kind of object it is impermanent, unsatisfactory, selfless. Sound, any sound, human, animal, male, female, children, adults, and so forth and so on, any sound we hear is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. Any smell, any odor, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, the same. Any taste is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. Any tangible things, touch, is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. Any thought, any mental object is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. Seeing this, the sameness in all these diverse things, equanimity arises. That is called equanimity, diversified or diverse in equanimity, and based on diverse objects.
Bhante, question.
Yeah.
Equanimity based on the diverse. Is it diversity of sense basis or the ones that are that follows after the sense after the contact, like feelings, perceptions, and volitions?
From sense object
Yes.
and feeling, particularly here we
Yes.
talk
Feeling
about
based on the eye, feeling based on the
right.
Those are
Feeling based on visual object and eyes, both.
So it includes not just this contact, not just the sense base, but it also includes the feelings and the perceptions that...
Right. Everything that arises through our senses.
I think what you're asking is, does it include all 5 aggregates or not?
No, 5 aggregates are included, but he's talking about the 6 senses.
Yes.
Right, but...
6 senses.
Okay.
6 senses are in the the form
Oh, yeah.
and one of the aggregates. He is not talking about all the aggregates.
Okay.
But all the aggregates can be brought into this because eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, when we talk about 6 senses, all the 5 aggregates are there.
Yes.
The feeling, perception, thoughts, volition of mental activities, and all these things are there. And all these are diverse objects for equanimity. And all of them are equally changing, impermanent, unsatisfactory. And therefore, whatever experience we gain through senses, they all are diverse objects. And the equanimity can arise from these diverse experiences. And therefore it is called equanimity based on diversity. What is the equanimity based on unity? This is another quiz.
Seeing the sameness in everything?
What?
Seeing the sameness in everything?
No. Feeling the sameness in everything comes from diversity. But unity, when we talk about unity, what comes to your mind? Concentration. When we talk about unity, concentration must come to our mind. Concentration is jhana. When we practice jhana, we gain concentration. And that unity, that equanimity coming from jhanic practice is called equanimity based on unity. Because in the attainment of jhana, all the factors are united.
Oh, I see.
All the factors are united. It is called kusala chittasya ekagrata samadhi. One-pointedness of all wholesome mental state is called concentration. They all are united. They work together in unity. They are not diverse. Diverse things eventually, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, all fade away. We don't pay any attention to them. Then, what is left is only the mind. And the mind also free from hindrances. Various greed, hatred, sleepiness, drowsiness, restlessness, worry, doubt, and all these are the diverse things. They all are faded away, and then mind becomes united. United, all the wholesome mental states are united. And that united mental state is called jhana. And there, one factor is very prominent. That factor continues till last attainment of jhanas, concentration. That factor is equanimity. Equanimity. And therefore it is called, equanimity is a feeling. And therefore it is called equanimity based on unity. Now, equanimity that is that is unified, based on unity. Now, there is a equanimity regarding the base of infinite space. The base of infinite consciousness, the base of nothingness, base of neither perception nor non-perception. Equanimity starts from the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, and then with the, what you call, they are called ayatana. Ayatana means base. Even these, our senses are also called ayatana in Pali, chakku ayatana and so forth. But when we meditate, when we develop our mind in concentration and go higher and higher and higher and higher, making the mind more and more and more concentrated and more refined, clear, pure, then we gain other state of concentration, other levels. Those levels are called ayatana. They are not called jhanas, although in ordinary conversation people call all 8 jhana and so forth. But only 4, the lower state of concentration is called jhana, and the state going beyond the material level is called higher attainment of the basis, ayatana. There are Pali terms, we will discuss this later on. But I try to save time, and you are going to ask question?
Yes, how do you spell that, Bhante?
What?
How do you spell ayata?
Ayatana.
Ayatana. A-Y-A-T-A-N-A. But first A is long.
Well,
Ayatana. Now, these levels of equanimity is called infinite space. That's called in Pali akasa, akasanancha ayatana, infinite space. Then, based on infinite consciousness, vijnanancha ayatana. Then, based on nothingness, akinchanya ayatana. And equanimity based on neither perception nor non-perception, ayatana. That is neva sanya, na sanya, ayatana. So these states, in each state we maintain equanimity. So equanimity begins from the first jhana, it goes to the second, third, fourth, and then these 4 bases. 8 levels of equanimity. And each level of equanimity is just equanimity, but the higher it goes, the refiner it becomes. That is why when these are just a theory for, average people, but they will no longer be theories when one keep practicing meditation, attaining these levels. They will no longer be just theory. These are real mental states that person definitely, personally experience. And this is why the Dhamma is called Pachaktam Veditapo Vinyuhi. Dhamma is to be realized by each and every wise individual. Realized. Theory is one thing, realization is another. So, this is the higher kind of feeling. Now, depending on equanimity that is unified, based on unity, abandon and surmount the equanimity that is diversified. You see? Now, Equanimity that is diversified is ordinary, mundane equanimity coming through our eyes, ears, nose and so forth. That equanimity compared to the higher state is very rough, coarse. So that equanimity should be overcome by the equanimity based on unity, that is by attaining jhanas. Now, that also goes on, abandoning a semantic equanimity that is diversified based on diversity. It is thus the abandon of equanimity based on another equanimity. One equanimity is abandoned by using another equanimity. Now, finally what remains? Highest level of equanimity. Highest level of equanimity is equanimity on at the level of neither perception nor non-perception. Equanimity. But this equanimity based on the highest equanimity based on unity also should not be held as possession. That is non-identification. One should not try to identify oneself with that equanimity. That means you normally, when such mental state arises, the thought arises along with that, this is my statement, my equanimity. I experience this equanimity. And it belongs to me, and so forth. That me and that, I and that should be abandoned. That is non-identification. We don't try to identify ourselves either as one or separate. Just experience it without trying to make any distinction, separation. That is how the equanimity develops. But there is another state that is called Sanya Vedita Nirodha. Sanya Vedita Nirodha. That is the cessation of perceptions and feeling. Cessation of perception and feeling. Only those who have attained this higher level of equanimity and those who have attained supramundane level can attain this state called cessation of perceptions and feeling, called Sanya Vedita Nirodha. Okay. Now, on more personal level, yes?
I just have one question about it. If it's neither perception nor non-perception, is consciousness there? In that state, neither perception?
Yes, you cannot...
Not, that's it though.
consciousness is there, but it is extremely subtle and inactive. You cannot survive without consciousness. Consciousness is there. But perception is called sanya. Sanya. Sanya means Rupa Sanya, Saddha Sanya, Gandha Sanya, Rasa Sanya, perception of form, perception of sound, perception of smell, perception of various things. In that perception of various type of perceptions, consciousness is there. And that perception itself will be ceased, but the consciousness will remain. Consciousness will remain not alone. It is conscious of the equanimity, conscious of this feeling. But that consciousness, that feeling, both are so subtle that there is no way one can identify or separate one from the other. Now, the feeling can be used for in a wholesome way or unwholesome way. When there was an old man called Nakulapita. Nakula was the son. His father is known by the son. Normally, sons are known by parents. Occasionally, parents are known by the son. Because the children, the son is more famous than the parents. In that case, parents are known by the son. And when the parents are famous, children are known by the parents. In this case, Nakula was famous, and his father is called Nakulapita, father of Nakula. He was very old man, I think more than 100 years old man. One day went to see the Buddha and said, Venerable Sir, I am very old, I have all aches and pains all over my body. Could you give me some advice? Then the Buddha said, if your body is aching, having pains and discomfort, don't make the mind sick. If the body is sick, don't make the mind sick. This man, out of respect for the Buddha, did not ask any further question. He simply wanted to see the Buddha. And he was so delighted to see the Buddha and hear this little advice. He was full of joy, with clear, peaceful, serene face. He was walking away. And he met Venerable Sariputta. And Sariputta asked, Nakulapita, you are so delightful today. You look very happy, very peaceful, serene. What happened? I saw the Buddha. What happened? Then he reported to him what happened, what the Buddha said and so forth. And then this man asked Venerable Sariputta, Buddha said to me, when the body is sick, I should not get my mind sick. How can I do that? So Sariputta, why did you ask the Buddha? Oh, I love Buddha so much, respect Buddha so much, I did not want to trouble him. Could you explain it to me? Then Venerable Sariputta explained. This message we learn psychology. In the Buddhist psychology, one of the very highlightable point is this. This should be underscored in Buddhist psychology. That is, Venerable Sariputta tells him, this man, an ordinary average person is called Putujjana, one who has not been associating with the noble ones and do not respect them, they don't learn their Dhamma, and they are just ordinary people. When they, he's summarizing the whole thing, when they have when they are in that mental state, they think the form as self. Form as self. If we ask anybody, can you show me yourself? They will say, this is self. This is self. Form as self. In Pali, Rupang Attato Samanupassati. I try to explain these things, using these terms. This is not directly talking about feeling, but I am trying to explain what try to relate what Venerable Sariputta told Nakulapita. And there you can see the way how the mind is kept unaffected by the physical aches and pains. So, one would think it refers to all form, feeling, perception, thoughts, and volitional formations and mental states. All the five aggregates. So I use only one. As Venerable Sariputta pointed out, explained all these five. People think these five are self. Self is in them. Or self and this are identical. Or they are self is in them, they are in self, and so forth, in 20 different ways. They think of self. Then feeling, perceptions, and so forth. And they are, by thinking that way, when the body is in pain, they think my body is in pain. My body is sick. When we think my body is sick, the mind is sick. When we identify the body with ourselves, one may say, I am sick. Then the mind also sick. Because one try to identify oneself with the body. So, Venerable Sariputta told this man, don't try to identify your body with the self. and think that this body is not possessing self, and the problem is when we think that the body is self, or I am selfish in the body and so forth, your notion is that self is something permanent. If you say self is sick, then the sickness is permanent. That is why he wanted him not to think in terms of self and referring to the body, in reference to the body, and feeling, perception, thought and so forth, not to think them as self. Self is in them, they are in self, and they are identical. Because as long as you involve with self, you are thinking in terms of permanency. When the self is sick, therefore, sickness will be permanent, which is not. That is the essence of what Venerable Sariputta told this gentleman Nakulapita. So the Buddha explained, when somebody is ordinary person is having pain or painful feeling, under this painful feeling, as soon as they have painful feeling, they will sorrow, grieve, lament and weep and become distraught because of the painful feeling. And that person will have two kind of feelings, two kind of darts, two darts. One, bodily aches and pain. That is one dart. Second is sorrowing, grieving, lamenting and being distraught. These are two things. When bodily feeling arises, it is something not going to be permanent. We should see the bodily pain. It is just like, for example, when a little child has a cut, child will cry, seeing blood. Yeah? But if the adult has the same cut, adult doesn't cry. Because it's a simple thing for him. He can deal with that. Because he knows that it can be cured and it will be healed. Similarly, then in that case, adult does not have two darts. He will not be affected by two darts. The child will be affected by two. One is physical, other is mental. Similarly, Buddha said, when average person has pain, referring to physical pain, then the person, if the person is going to cry, sorrow, grieve, depressed, disappointed and so forth, in addition to physical pain, the person introduces mental pain as well. So Buddha says, suppose there's a man who is strike him once, and then immediately strike him again. Then he will have more pain. So that is one thing Buddha wanted us to remember. When we have physical pain or physical sickness, don't make the mind sick. That means physical sickness can be dealt with something physical. If you bring it to the mind, then you have a mental sickness as well. It is very simple. Only through understanding one can make the separation and remain steady. So, when the pain arises, there is an underlying tendency. What is that?
Aversion?
Aversion. Now, pain is one thing, aversion is another. Pain is physical, aversion is mental. So when pain arises, we have to be very careful and mindful not to develop aversion. So we will not be affected by two darts. Okay. When a pleasure arises, what is the underlying tendency? Happy feeling? Huh?
Attraction or liking.
Greed. Greed. Is greed pleasant or unpleasant?
Unpleasant.
Greed is a feeling. When joy arises, if we have greed also under that as underlying tendency, then we will have more pain. Why? Huh?
Because it's impermanent.
Because it is impermanent. Joy has greed as underlying tendency. Greed is not pleasant. Grief has underlying tendency as hatred, anger. That is not pleasant. So when equanimity arises, what is the underlying tendency? Confusion. Confusion. Confusion also is not something pleasant. We all know that. Now, okay. Now, when a noble, understanding disciple have this, they know how to deal with them very easily. So, they don't have two darts. They don't suffer from two arrows. They suffer only with one arrow. Now, when somebody, in this case we talk about a bhikkhu, lives mindful, clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent and resolute. If there arises in him a pleasant feeling, he understands thus, this has arisen in me, a pleasant, there has arisen in me a pleasant feeling. Now, that is dependent, not independent. Pleasant feeling arises dependent on something. It is not independently arising. what does it depend? Pleasant feeling arises depending on something. What does it depend? Depending on the body. Depending on the body. And this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So this pleasant feeling also is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. Now this is the meditator's state of mind. So Buddha was talking about the meditator's state of mind. Meditator also has the feeling just like anybody else. Now, but because of his mindfulness, clear comprehension, understanding, insight, he sees the reality of feeling. This is called seeing things as they really are. In Pali it's called yataha bhuta jnana darsana. So when one sees this is the situation between one who sees things and one who does not see. This liberation from samsara depends on seeing and understanding. Jatang bhutam yata bhutam. Jatam phasang yata bhutam. Jnanam phasang yata bhutam. Knowing, seeing things as they are. Now in this case, he sees this pleasant feeling is arisen dependent on the body. If the body is the base of this feeling, that body is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless. So the feeling is impermanent, unsatisfactory and selfless and conditioned. So then it is very easy for the person to see that in the body and the pleasant feeling, he lives contemplating vanishing phenomena. Vanishing means aniccanupassi. So while feeling is there, while experiencing the feeling, the mindful person experiences the feeling changing, impermanence. And it is fading away. It ceases, cessation, and it is relinquishment, abandoning, letting go. Since it is impermanence, vanishing, and non-clinging, that is fading away, and then it disappears. So he sees these 4 stages of that feeling. What are the 4 stages? Aniccanupassi, viraganupassi, nirodhanupassi, paticcasamupassi. Anicca is impermanent. Viraga is fading away. Nirodha is cessation. Paticcasamupassi is abandonment. When it is arising and passing away, fading away and stopping and ceasing, then it is easy for the mind to let it go. Easy to mind to let it happen. If it is impermanent, mind is not trying to make it permanent. If it is fading away, mind cannot bring it back. If it ceases, it stops, mind cannot stop its ceasing. Therefore, fading, abandoning, let it happen. No, now see these the 3 stages makes it easy for that person to let it go. This is how the feeling should be dealt with. It doesn't happen very quickly, not in 1-2 sittings, but through constant training of our mind, we will learn to deal with the feeling. So, so he understands that is about the pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling and neutral feelings, all these feelings. Then now it can be with regard to any kind of feeling. So he neither delights when the pleasant feeling arises, nor will he be grieving, but he sees what really is happening to that particular feeling. Now this is a very important, very important state that the meditators will achieve to understanding. So I think this may be enough. There are more things to say about feeling. There are, when he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with the body. When he feels the feeling terminating with life, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with life. He understands, with the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt not being delighted in will become cool right here and now. Now, when the body ends, these two sentences are very important to remember. When he feels a feeling terminating with the body, he understands, I feel a feeling terminating with the body. When he feels the feeling terminating with life, he understands, I feel the feeling terminating with life. Kaya paryantam, jivita paryantam. Terminating with the body, terminating with life. Life. What is the difference between terminating with the body and terminating with life?
My guess was like Nibbana, like he's achieved, like he's not going to take any more rebirth. That's what terminating life, like consciousness, like now. He's not going to get. He's free. So that's what.
Terminating with the body is when you are in the state called cessation of feeling and perception, cessation of feeling and perception, you terminate your body. That means no physical contact, feeling. When you are, we mentioned it earlier, cessation of feeling and perception. While the life is there, but bodily perception and feelings are no longer there. So we understand that. When the life is completely terminated, then that is called the termination of life. So that is why the Buddha said, with the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in, will become cool and right now, right here and now. So, breaking up the body is attaining the state of neither perception nor non-perception. What you call cessation of feeling and perception. Cessation of feeling and perception is the state where your awareness is completely drawn from the body, withdrawn from the body. That is the termination of the body. When you pass away completely, that is the termination of life. Until such time, one must, the feeling is there, and one must understand this type of feeling. Okay? It is compared to just an oil lamp in dependence on the oil and the wick, and with the exhaustion of oil and the wick, it is exhausted through lack of fuel. So too, a bhikkhu, when bhikkhu feels feeling terminating with the body, terminating with life, he understands with the breakup of the body, following the exhaustion of life, all that is felt, not being delighted in it, will become cool and calm. So that is the last stage we are feeling.
But that's referring to when you attain Nibbana, that passing away, compared to regular person dying and rebirth, right?
Yeah. Now, I want to complete this today. In the next class, I will bring up the next section. I want to remind you of the 108 kind of feelings. We have not discussed, some of them we discussed, most of them we discussed. There are 36 kind of feelings. What are they?
First 6, I think, this eyes,
Six
ears,
senses.
6 senses.
Yes.
And then present, past, future.
Yeah,
6 3, 18.
36. No,
6 times
6
3, 18.
18.
And then internal and external.
No, 18 multiplied by 2, 36.
So internal and external. Or
Now, 6 type of joy based on renunciation, 6 kind of pleasure, based on renunciation, 6 kind of what you call neutral, 6 kind of joy, 6 kind of pain, and 6 kind of neither perception nor what you call neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So this is how we have 6, 6, 6. Huh?
That's it, it's 6,
18, isn't it? For 6 senses,
6,
we have each sense has 6.
6, 6, and then 3, and then 2. So it is 6 type of, all the sense bases have 6 type of feelings, and then that is 36.
Yeah.
And then 3 times of like past, future, and present,
Mm-hmm.
and then external feeling and internal feeling, that is 108.
Not external and internal, but
so
household and renunciation.
okay, so each sense is having six feeling of householder, 6 feeling of renunciate.
Mm-hmm.
That's make it 18. So 18 times 6 itself will become 108, right? So because the 6 senses.
Yeah. 6 types of joy based on the household life. What are the 6 kinds of joys? Coming from eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind. Then 6 kinds of joy based on the renunciation. Then 6 kinds of pleasure based on the household life. Now 6 kinds of displeasure based on household life and renunciation. Then 6 types of equanimity based on household life, 6 kinds of equanimity based on renunciation. These are called 36 kinds of feelings. Then these 36 feelings multiply by 3, past, present and future,
That makes it 108.
108. Okay, with this we want to conclude today's class, and if you have any further question, I'd be happy to spend some time.
So Bhante, I think you mentioned about, I didn't get it, like underlying equanimity is confusion. So like equanimity is like bliss, like finally you don't have anything, you are just, so the confusion is of, still there's ignorance or that.
Underlying tendency of equanimity is ignorance. Why ignorance or confusion? I think I mentioned it last time. You can see the pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. I mean, you can experience pleasant feeling and unpleasant feeling. But the feeling in between, normally people don't talk about it. And even that feeling has a beginning and end. That normally people don't know because they don't pay any attention to that. When we experience one kind of feeling and pay total attention with diligence, mindfulness, then that feeling you have been experiencing comes to an end. Now when it comes to an end, then there will be a period that you don't feel very much. And that period is over then another feeling starts. For example, you may have painful feeling, you keep paying attention to it, and pain disappears. And you don't experience pleasure immediately. And after some time you experience pleasant feeling. Now what happened between painful feeling and pleasant feeling?
Neither painful nor neutral.
That period has a beginning and end. When pleasant feeling ends, neutral feeling begins. But that beginning you don't see. And that neutral feeling ends and a painful feeling arises. I mean, if you had painful feeling when it ends, neutral feeling begins. When that period is over, pleasant feeling arises. So you can see the beginning of pleasant feeling, ending of painful feeling, but what is in between you don't see. That is where the confusion arises. That means you are confused to, you don't know the beginning and end of that neutral feeling.
Maybe confusion is not the right word for it because it's a negative.
Now, I'm trying to use English words. For the Pali word, moha, Pali word, or sometimes it's called avidya, not knowing. I think not knowing may be a better term rather than confusion. I gave even an example last time. Example was a deer hunter chase a deer, and deer runs so fast the hunter sees its footprints and he follows the footprints. And there is a rock, large rock. And there, at the beginning of the rock, his footprint stops. You cannot see. So this man inferentially knows deer must have run over the rock. So he walks or runs on the rock, and at the end of the rock he sees the deer footprints again. Then he concludes that this deer came up here, went across this, and continued here. Seeing this and this, he concludes he must have gone over the rock. Neutral feeling is like that. And that we don't see very clearly, therefore it is called avidya, not knowledge. That is what you can see. There is a beautiful discourse in Majjhima Nikaya called Cha Chakka Sutta. Cha Chakka Sutta, where you can find it. And the other place you can see is Anapanasati Sutta, also in Majjhima Nikaya. In these two places you can see this explanation.
Bhante, this Vedana, I think you mentioned, did you write down? What is the sutta that you used to explain the Vedana?
Now,
Yeah.
there are several suttas I used, particularly Bahuvedaniya Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, and Samyutta Nikaya there is a section called Vedana Samyutta. Vedana Samyutta. And beside that in Anguttara Nikaya, there are sections. but I took material from Samyutta Nikaya and Madhyama Nikaya.
It's very complicated.
Feeling is complicated anyway. You see, I have a mixed feeling. How can I explain that? Mixed feeling? Like fruit salad? You can explain that.
One day I have a question related to household and renunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a parallel in like lay life, like lay people and renounce bhikkhu? Is that how it is, or is it not like that at all?
Oh, that is what I explained. That yes, there are parallels. Household grief and grief of renunciation.
But a household person, is still a lay person, can renounce something.
Now, household and renounced life can be one. One person can be a household person as well as renounced person. The time he practices renouncing, that time, that moment, that person is renounced person, renounced state of mind. Otherwise you cannot find somebody over there renounced and somebody over here also. Renounced person can live a household life because he renounced temporarily, but his the condition that he is born with and grown up with those conditions, they are still in the mind. So wherever he goes, there they go. And therefore, you can have a break. That is why we say when you are even a householder, when they meditate, during that period they renounce the people. Because they are cut off from all the other worldly things. So you can see the period you extend. Renounced person can extend his household life, even though he is renounced, extend his household feelings, and then finally he gives up renunciation and go back to the household. Household person can increase the renunciation feeling or the life of renunciation, that period in the practice, then eventually that person will give up household life and enter the renounced life.
But for a monastic it becomes easier because,
Monastic is supposed to be easy. It is supposed to be easy for the monastic. If the monastic is living diligently, mindfully, with clear comprehension, then it will become easy. If the monastic is not mindful, without no clear comprehension, is not diligent, then it is not easy. Yeah.
Can I ask just one quick question, please? We always bring everything back to greed, hatred, and delusion, but to me it seems like they're not on the same footing. It seems like greed and hatred are much more on a negative scale than delusion. It seems to me that delusion would be the hardest one to overcome.
Yeah.
Is that true? And what about somebody that's achieved the level of stream entry? Have they already completely overcome the state of delusion?
Yes, actually, one who enters the stream entry has broken through the cycle of repetition of birth and death. And what is left for him is very little. What he has left behind is the bulk work. So, even this morning you asked me the question, which is in the Samyutta Nikaya. The Buddha took a little bit of dirt to his finger nail. I don't know, he took this way or this way. It was Nakasika Sutta in Samyutta Nikaya. Nakasika. Naka means nail. Sika means crown. That is to the tip of his fingernail. He took little dust, dirt, and showed to bhikkhus and asked bhikkhus, what is greater, the dirt on my fingertip, fingernail, tip of my fingernail, or the rest of the world? Answer is very obvious. When the bhikkhu said what is in the world is greater than this, the Buddha says, similarly, bhikkhus, what the stream enterer has left behind is like the world. What he has to do and what he has not completed is only this much. That means the major thing is that he broke through the greed, what you call notion of self, doubt, and believing in rituals. Now these three things they dominate our life. They dominate our life. Self, notion of self, doubt, and following rituals, all kinds of rituals. Even though among 10 fetters, he has destroyed only 3 fetters. 7 still are to be destroyed. And yet, all the other 7, these 3 equal to the remaining 7. Because these 3 are the major things that one has to overcome.
It seems like abandoning the self would be the hardest one,
Abandoning,
more than rituals.
right. Abandoning the self is the hardest one.
And the doubt is like doubt that there is no self. That's a doubt. There's no other. What's the doubt?
Doubt is the doubt of the Buddha, Buddha's attainment, the Dhamma, Sangha, dependent origination, karma, rebirth. These are things that people doubt. And therefore, it's a very big fetter. Yeah. Buddha ekankati, Dhamma ekankati, Sangha ekankati, idappacceta patissampada ekankati, idaloka ekankati, paraloka ekankati, and so forth. Doubt. So, purification of the mind has 7 stages. One of them is doubt. According to Ratha Vinita Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, that is relay chariot is the English translation. In that discourse it is stated one of the stages to purify is doubt. Bulkhanka Vitarana Visuddhi.
Anyone else have any questions? I have one, Bhante. Like infinite space and things, those cannot be explained to a scientist to understand. You have to experience it.
Now, I think somebody with a certain amount of common sense can understand how infinite the space is. But when one practices meditation, as the mind becomes clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer, and then attaining the fourth jhanic level, mind is so sharp that sharp mind can see more clearly than any other ordinary person that the space is infinite. No limit. My friend can support us or defy. You agree with me? No? Space is limited?
Limited? No.
No? So you agree with me? You agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah. This gentleman is working for NASA. So he is working with the subject that you talk about, space. So that is why in front of him I feel very intimidated to talk about that topic. But since he is supporting, I feel confident.
Bhante, when you go through 8 jhanic states, at which state of jhana that your senses shut off, sense objects?
Your senses will, even in the fourth jhana, you are not contacting with any
No contact at all.
no sensory objects. You contact only with the mind.
But do you have mind objects at that time?
No. Only mind object is the concentration and equanimity. In that state, there are 8 qualities. And because of those 8 qualities, the mind is so pure and clean, temporarily. Because underlying tendencies are dormant. They are not, so for instance, which are called asava. Asava means influxes. They are dormant, not active. And therefore the mind is temporarily very, very pure and clean. No contact with the sensory objects. When we go higher, even a higher, what you call bases, akasa, ayatanas, then that state of mind becomes so pure and clean, you cannot explain it in words. Your mind is completely out of worldly perception.
Can they leave the body then? If they can someone
No, actually, leaving the body is not possible without training the mind after attaining the fourth jhana. Some people call astral body. To develop that state, you got to meditate on the disadvantage of body. Adina, seeing the disadvantage of anything material. That is a special training.
But it's not encouraged.
Well, if somebody wants to do it, there's nothing to prevent. And if somebody wants to have, somebody has the will and time and perseverance and health and so forth, there's nothing to stop it. That depends on the individuals. Okay?
Sadhu, sadhu.